I'm Caitlin, 32, and I never thought my sister Madison would stoop so low. The audacity of showing up at my doorstep with her twins demanding I babysit during the very wedding I was uninvited from still makes my blood boil. Years of being the family doormat flashed before my eyes as she stood there, designer purse in hand, acting like I'd be grateful for the opportunity. Something in me finally snapped. While Madison walked down the aisle in her perfect white dress, I was sipping my tea on a black sand beach in Maui. Initially, I'd hoped her wedding might finally heal our fractured relationship. Instead, it revealed exactly how little she valued me. Before I dive into this family drama, let me know where you're watching from and hit subscribe if you enjoy stories about finally standing up to entitled family members after years of being taken for granted. Madison and I were never what you'd call close. 3 years my senior, she was the golden child from day one. Straight-A student, homecoming queen, and our parents' undeniable favorite. I still remember her high school graduation, when our parents surprised her with a brand new Audi, wrapped in a giant red bow. 2 years later at my graduation, I received a card with $50 and a reminder that college textbooks were quite expensive these days. Our childhood home in suburban Connecticut was essentially a shrine to Madison's achievements. The living room wall proudly displayed her debate team trophies, ballet, recital photos, and academic certificates. My own accomplishments, winning the regional art competition 3 years running or getting my illustrations published in the local paper, were met with distracted nods and "that's nice, dear" comments from our parents. "Caitlin, why can't you apply yourself like your sister became the soundtrack of my teenage years?" My more creative pursuits were viewed as hobbies, not potential careers. While Madison dutifully followed our father's footsteps toward law school, I struggled through community college, working 2 jobs, eventually transferring to art school, where I found my passion for graphic design. "You're throwing away your potential on doodling," my mother had said when I changed majors. Meanwhile, they paid Madison's full ride through an Ivy League education and law school. After graduation, I moved to Philadelphia, built a client base, and eventually secured a position at a respected design agency. I created my own success without family connections or financial support. My apartment became my sanctuary, filled with plants, vintage furniture I'd restored myself, and walls adorned with art from local creators I'd befriended. It wasn't luxurious, but it was mine, earned through years of hard work and determination. Madison predictably married Derek, a successful investment banker from a good family, as my mother constantly reminded everyone. Their wedding 7 years ago was an extravagant affair at the country club, with 6 bridesmaids in designer dresses. I was assigned to help elderly relatives find their seats rather than standing beside her. Their twins, Emma and Ethan, arrived 3 years into their marriage. Perfect blonde-haired cherubs who completed Madison's picture-perfect life in her Connecticut McMansion just 3 streets over from our parents. I became Aunt Caitlin, who was expected to show up for every birthday with expensive gifts, but was rarely invited for regular family dinners. Despite everything I tried, maintaining a cordial relationship with Madison. Family gatherings were exercises in patience, as I endured subtle digs about my single status, my creative but unstable career, and my modest apartment. My sister had mastered the art of complimenting while simultaneously criticizing. "That dress is so flattering on you. It really hides your problem areas," or "Your apartment has such character. You've done wonders with such a small space." I'd developed a system for these interactions, smile change the subject, and remind myself that I only had to endure this treatment during holidays and occasional family dinners. Between these obligations, I built a fulfilling life with genuine friends who appreciated my quirky sense of humor and artistic perspective. Rachel, my best friend since college, constantly urged me to establish firmer boundaries with my family. "They treat you like an afterthought until they need something," she'd say. I knew she was right, but breaking decades-old family dynamics seemed insurmountable. When Madison needed a last-minute babysitter, I was her first call. When she needed help planning their elaborate 5th anniversary party, suddenly my creative hobby became a valuable resource for custom invitations and decorations, free of charge, of course. Each time I convinced myself that maybe, just maybe, these moments of being needed would evolve into genuine appreciation or respect. Our relationship existed in this fragile state of obligatory sisterhood until the wedding drama began. Madison and Derek had decided to renew their vows for their 7th anniversary with an even more elaborate celebration than their original wedding. This time, I thought things might be different. I was financially stable, my design career was thriving, and I'd made efforts to be present in my niece and nephew's lives despite the complexity of my relationship with their mother. When Madison called last November asking me to be a bridesmaid, I allowed myself to hope that perhaps she finally saw me as worthy of standing beside her. That glimmer of hope would soon be extinguished in spectacular fashion. The wedding planning began 6 months ago, with Madison sending a group text to her chosen bridesmaids. I stared at my phone in disbelief when I saw my name included. Maybe this was her way of extending an olive branch, I thought. Maybe after all these years, she finally saw me as an equal. We're thinking blush pink for the bridesmaids, Madison announced during our first dress shopping expedition. I stood awkwardly among her college sorority sisters and Derek's cousins, all of whom were model thin and looked like they belonged in a bridal magazine. "Caitlin, maybe you should look at the plus-size section," Madison said loudly in the upscale boutique. "These designers run so small." The other women exchanged glances as my cheeks burned with embarrassment. I wear a completely average size 8, but next to Madison's fitness-obsessed friends, I might as well have been wearing a sign that said, "Before," in a weight loss commercial. Still, I swallowed my pride. This was progress, I told myself. Being included at all was better than being relegated to guest book attendant like last time. The next hurdle came when Madison mentioned the invitations. "We're going with Cartier, of course," she said during a wedding planning lunch. "Nothing but the best." "I could design something custom for you," I offered. "Something that really tells your love story. I did the Stevens-Johnson wedding invitations last month, and they were featured in Modern Bride." Madison's smile tightened. "That's sweet, but this is a formal event, Caitlin. We need professional quality." The dismissal stung like a slap. My work had been published in multiple design magazines, and I'd built a reputation for high-end wedding stationery. But to Madison, I was still the little sister who made cute crafts. The real turning point came during a family dinner 3 months before the wedding. Madison arrived last as usual, making her entrance in a designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "I have some exciting updates about the wedding," she announced once everyone had been served. "Derek's family is flying in relatives from Europe, so we've had to make some adjustments to the wedding party." My stomach dropped as she continued. "Caitlin, we're going to have you attend as a guest instead of a bridesmaid. Derek's sister Chloe is bringing her new boyfriend, and he's a groomsman now, so we need even numbers." Our parents nodded along as if this made perfect sense. No one acknowledged how humiliating it was to be publicly demoted. After dinner, I cornered Madison in the kitchen. "You could have told me this privately," I said, keeping my voice low. "Did you have to announce it in front of everyone?" Madison sighed dramatically. "It's not personal, Caitlin. These things happen in wedding planning. Derek's family is paying for half the wedding, so they get a say. Besides," she added, looking me up and down the dress, "we chose really wasn't working with your body type." I bit back tears. "Right. Wouldn't want to ruin your perfect photos." "Don't be dramatic," she replied. "You're still invited. That's what matters." I tried to be understanding. I really did. I told myself that weddings are stressful and bring out the worst in people. I convinced myself that once the wedding was over, things might improve between us. But each subsequent family gathering became increasingly uncomfortable as Madison discussed bridesmaid brunches and bachelorette plans in front of me, events I was now excluded from. The bridal shower was the final indignity before the uninvitation. Held at an exclusive country club, I arrived carrying a carefully selected gift. A custom artwork I'd commissioned from an artist friend depicting Madison and Derek's first home together. "Oh, how creative," Madison said when I presented it quickly, setting it aside to open gifts from her bridesmaids, all expensive items from her registry. Throughout the shower, I sat at a table with elderly relatives while Madison's friends took selfies and shared inside jokes from the bachelorette weekend in Miami I hadn't been invited to. I spent 3 hours nursing a single glass of champagne, feeling like a stranger at an event celebrating my own sister. As I drove home afterward, I called Rachel in tears. "Why do I keep doing this to myself?" I asked. "Why do I keep expecting her to treat me like family?" "Because she is family," Rachel replied gently. "And you keep hoping that means something to her the way it does to you." Little did I know that Madison had an even greater humiliation planned, one that would finally push me to my breaking point. The call came on a Tuesday evening, 3 weeks before the wedding. I was working late on a project when Madison's name flashed across my phone screen. I almost let it go to voicemail. I was exhausted from a day of client meetings and not in the mood for wedding talk. but some lingering sense of obligation made me answer. Hey, Madison. What's up? Caitlin, I'm glad I caught you. Her voice had that syrupy, sweet tone she used when she was about to say something awful. I wanted to talk to you about the wedding. I braced myself for another task she needed help with, or perhaps another change to the seating arrangement. We've been finalizing numbers with the venue and we're having some issues with the budget and capacity, she continued. Okay. I said, not sure where this was heading. Derek and I were thinking, since you're not in the wedding party anymore, you might be more comfortable not attending at all. The words hung in the air between us. It took me a moment to process what she was saying. You're uninviting me from your wedding, I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Don't be so dramatic, Madison replied with an impatient sigh. It's not uninviting if we're discussing it beforehand. I'm just saying that since you seemed upset about the bridesmaid situation, maybe this is for the best. Upset, Madison, you publicly demoted me and then excluded me from every pre-wedding event. See, this is exactly the negative attitude I'm talking about, she said. Derek and I want our day to be perfect, and honestly, I'm worried you'll make it about you somehow. I was speechless. The audacity, the cruelty of her words knocked the wind out of me. I have never not once made anything about me, I finally managed. I've spent my entire life standing in your shadow, applauding your achievements, and accepting scraps of attention from our family. And now you're telling me I'm not welcome at your vow renewal because I might. What? Steal your spotlight by existing? You're overreacting, Madison said coldly. This is exactly why we think it's better if you skip this one. After we hung up, I sat in stunned silence, staring at my living room wall. Then I called our parents, hoping against hope they might take my side for once. Madison is just under a lot of stress, my mother said dismissively. Wedding planning is very difficult. It's her special day, my father added. Maybe it is better to sit this one out if you're going to bring this attitude. That night, I curled up on my couch and cried until I had no tears left. The rejection wasn't just about a wedding. It was the culmination of a lifetime of being treated as less than of being the family afterthought. The next morning, my phone was filled with messages from extended family members. Heard you can't make the wedding. We'll miss you, texted my cousin Leah. Everything okay, Madison said you couldn't attend, wrote my Aunt Susan. Madison had already spun the narrative. Not that she had uninvited me, but that I couldn't make it. The final insult. Rachel came over that evening with wine and takeout. This is beyond toxic, Caitlin, she said as I showed her the messages. She uninvites you and then makes you look like the bad guy. What am I supposed to do? I asked. If I tell everyone she uninvited me, I'm the petty sister causing drama. If I say nothing, I'm tacitly accepting her version of events. Maybe you need to distance yourself from all of it, Rachel suggested. Do something for yourself that weekend instead. Something amazing that has nothing to do with Madison or that ridiculous wedding. That night after Rachel left, I found myself browsing travel websites. Not seriously planning anything, just escaping into fantasies of beaches and mountain retreats. A Hawaii vacation package caught my eye. 4 days in Maui, including flights from Philadelphia at a discounted last-minute rate. The dates aligned perfectly with the wedding weekend. Wouldn't that be something I whispered to myself before closing the laptop and going to bed? I didn't book anything that night, but the seed had been planted. As the wedding approached and more messages came in from family members repeating Madison's lie about my absence, the Hawaii escape became increasingly appealing. Still, I tried to be the bigger person. I sent Madison a neutral message wishing her well with final wedding preparations. Her response was a terse thanks, followed by radio silence. I was finally beginning to accept the situation when Madison delivered her masterpiece of entitlement. A move so audacious it would finally push me to my breaking point. The Friday evening, a week before, the wedding had been designated as me time in my calendar. After a grueling work week finalizing designs for 3 different clients, I'd planned a quiet night of takeout, Thai food, a glass of wine, and catching up on my favorite shows. I'd just changed into my comfortable clothes, worn jeans, and my favorite oversized sweater, when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I checked through the peephole. To my complete surprise, Madison stood there, designer sunglasses perched on her head despite the evening hour with 5-year-old twins Emma and Ethan fidgeting beside her. When I opened the door, she breezed past me without waiting for an invitation, pulling 2 small rolling suitcases behind her. "Thank God you're home," she said, surveying my apartment with her usual barely concealed judgment. "I was worried you might be out." The twins ran to hug me. Despite everything with Madison, I adored my niece and nephew. They were sweet, curious children who hadn't yet absorbed their mother's sense of entitlement. Madison, what are you doing here? I asked, returning the children's hugs while giving my sister a confused look. Our babysitter for the wedding weekend just canceled, she announced, setting her purse on my coffee table. Some family emergency. Can you believe the timing? Anyway, I need you to watch Emma and Ethan. I stared at her in disbelief. What? From now until Monday, she continued as if I hadn't spoken. The rehearsal dinner is tomorrow night, then the wedding on Sunday, and we're spending Sunday night at the hotel before leaving for our mini-moon Monday morning. My mind struggled to process what was happening. Madison, you uninvited me from your wedding. She waved her hand dismissively. I knew you'd bring that up. Look, the venue situation worked out fine, but now we have this childcare crisis. It's actually perfect timing since you're not attending anyway. You're free all weekend, right? The audacity left me speechless. Madison interpreted my silence as agreement and began rattling off instructions. They need to be in bed by 8, no sugar after dinner, and Ethan has swim lessons tomorrow at 10. All the details are in this folder. She dropped a color-coded binder on my kitchen counter. Their suitcases have enough clothes for the weekend, plus their special outfits for the wedding that they'll wear in the family photos before the ceremony. You'll need to have them ready by 2 on Sunday. The photographer wants to do family shots before guests arrive. Wait, I finally managed. You want me to bring them to the wedding I'm not invited to? Just for the photos, Madison said, checking her watch. Derek's mother can take them after that. She wants them at the ceremony, but can't handle them for the whole weekend. Emma tugged at my hand. Aunt Caitlin, can we have cookies? Mommy said you might have cookies. I looked down at her hopeful face, then back at Madison. We need to talk about this. You can't just show up and expect me to. I don't have time for drama right now, Madison interrupted. The rehearsal starts in an hour, and I still need to pick up Derek. She knelt to kiss the twins goodbye. Be good for Aunt Caitlin. Remember, she doesn't have kids, so she doesn't know all the rules like Mommy does. That patronizing comment was the cherry on top of this outrageous situation. Madison, stop. You can't just... Their iPad has all their favorite shows downloaded, she continued, heading for the door. Try not to let them watch too much, but honestly, whatever keeps them quiet is fine. Oh, and Ethan has been having nightmares, so he might end up in your bed. Madison, I finally raised my voice. You cannot seriously expect me to babysit your children for the entire weekend of the wedding you uninvited me from. The twins looked up startled by my tone. Madison gave me an icy stare. Lower your voice. You're scaring them. What is wrong with you? I asked, trying to modulate my tone despite my anger. How can you possibly think this is okay? What's wrong with me is that I'm getting married in 2 days and my childcare just fell through, she snapped. You're their aunt. This is what family does. Family also doesn't uninvite sisters from weddings, I countered. Madison sighed dramatically. Are you really still upset about that? It was a capacity issue, Caitlin. Grow up. She checked her watch again. I have to go. The kids have already had dinner, so just get them ready for bed. Before I could protest further, she was out the door, leaving me standing in my living room with 2 confused children and their weekend luggage. Emma looked up at me with wide eyes. Are you mad, Aunt Caitlin? I forced a smile. No, sweetie. Not at you. Never at you. I knelt down to their level. How about we make some hot chocolate and you can tell me about school this week? While the children sipped their drinks and chatted about kindergarten adventures, I texted Rachel, You won't believe what just happened. Her response was immediate. Madison dropped off the twins for me to babysit all weekend during her wedding. The one I'm not invited to. The 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times before Rachel's reply came through. Call me when they're asleep. As I put the twins to bed in my spare room later that night, my mind raced with conflicting emotions. Anger at Madison's presumption. Guilt at the thought of disappointing Emma and Ethan. Resentment at being treated like the family doormat yet again. After reading 3 bedtime stories and checking twice for monsters under the bed, I finally closed their door and called Rachel. This is next-level entitlement even for Madison, she said after I recounted the full story. She uninvites you then, expects you to provide free childcare? What am I supposed to do? I asked, pacing my living room. I can't just abandon the kids. This isn't their fault. Of course not, Rachel agreed. But you can't keep letting Madison walk all over you like this. There has to be a way to take care of the kids without completely sacrificing your self-respect. As we talked, a plan began to form. one that would ensure the twins were safe while simultaneously standing up for myself in a way I'd never done before. After hanging up with Rachel, I sat on my couch staring at the twins' suitcases in my living room. The color-coded binder Madison had left was a perfect metaphor for my sister's life. Organized, controlling, and presented with an expectation of compliance. I flipped through pages of detailed instructions from Ethan's precise sandwich preferences to Emma's hairstyling requirements for the wedding photos. This wasn't just about babysitting. This was Madison's ultimate power move, excluding me from her special day while simultaneously demonstrating how indispensable I was when convenient for her. The twins were sleeping peacefully in my guest room, innocent participants in their mother's manipulative games. I tiptoed in to check on them, my heart softening at the sight of their peaceful faces. Emma had kicked off her blanket, and I gently tucked it back around her shoulders. Back in my living room, I called Rachel again. "I can't do this anymore," I whispered, afraid of waking the children. "This isn't just about the wedding. This is my entire life with Madison." "What are you thinking?" Rachel asked cautiously. "I don't know yet," I admitted. "But I can't just roll over this time. I can't." As we talked, memories flooded back. Madison borrowing my prom dress and returning it stained. Madison telling college recruiters at our high school that I was taking a gap year when in reality I was applying to art schools. Madison announcing her first pregnancy at my art gallery debut, ensuring all attention shifted to her that evening. "It's a pattern," Rachel said. "She's never going to stop unless you make her." After we hung up, I opened my laptop again and found myself looking at that Hawaii vacation package. The impulse that had seemed absurd days ago now felt like the only rational response to an irrational situation. Before I could talk myself out of it, I entered my credit card information. The confirmation email arrived seconds later. I was going to Maui, departing tomorrow afternoon. My hands trembled as I realized what I'd done, but alongside the anxiety was an unfamiliar feeling liberation. Now I had to deal with the twins. I couldn't leave them alone, but I also couldn't let Madison win. After considering several options, I called my neighbor, Sophia, a retired elementary school teacher who adored children and had often commented on how sweet Emma and Ethan were when they visited. "It's an emergency," I explained after outlining the situation. "I know it's a lot to ask." "Bring them over in the morning," Sophia said without hesitation. "Your sister's behavior is appalling. I'm happy to help teach her a lesson." "I'll pay you, of course," I insisted. "We'll discuss that later," she replied. "Just text your parents to pick them up from my apartment tomorrow evening." Next, I packed quickly, throwing summer clothes into a suitcase with a sense of urgency I'd never felt before. I wrote a letter to Emma and Ethan explaining that Aunt Caitlin had to go away for a special trip, but that I loved them very much and would bring them souvenirs from Hawaii. I placed it in an envelope with Sophia's address written on the outside. Finally, I composed a text to Madison. "I've made alternative arrangements for Emma and Ethan. They'll be with my neighbor Sophia until this evening when our parents can pick them up. Her address is below. The children are safe and happy. Congratulations on your wedding. I'll be in Hawaii." I set the text to send automatically at noon tomorrow when my plane would be taking off. As I fell asleep that night, my last night as the old Caitlin who always accommodated Madison's demands, I felt a strange mixture of anxiety and exhilaration. For the first time in my life, I was choosing myself over the role my family had assigned me. Morning came with a momentary panic as I remembered what I'd done, but seeing the confirmation email in my inbox strengthened my resolve. I made the twins their favorite breakfast pancakes shaped like animals and explained that they would be spending the day with my wonderful neighbor Sophia while I had to take an unexpected trip. "Is it for work?" Ethan asked, syrup dripping down his chin. "It's for me," I replied honestly. Sometimes grown-ups need to take care of themselves to be better at taking care of others. I walked them to Sophia's apartment, carrying their small suitcases, and thanking her profusely. "Go find yourself, dear," she whispered as she hugged me goodbye. "It's about time." As my rideshare approached the airport, my phone began buzzing with incoming calls. Madison, my mother, then Madison again. I silenced it, feeling simultaneously terrified and powerful. By the time I checked in for my flight, I had 17 missed calls and 33 text messages. I scanned through them quickly. "What are you doing, Madison? This is completely irresponsible, Mom. You're ruining everything as usual." "Madison, your sister is hysterical. Call us immediately. Dad." The final message from Madison read, "If you get on that plane, don't expect to be welcome in this family anymore." As I boarded the flight to Maui, I turned off my phone completely. Whatever fallout awaited could be dealt with after I'd had 4 days of peace in paradise. The plane lifted off, and I felt the weight of decades of family expectations falling away. Whether this was an act of self-care or self-destruction remained to be seen, but for the first time in my life, I was writing my own story instead of accepting the supporting role Madison had always cast me in. The 5-hour flight from Philadelphia to Los Angeles, followed by another 6 hours to Maui, gave me plenty of time to second-guess my decision. Each time the plane hit turbulence, I wondered if it was the universe punishing me for my selfishness. But by the time we began our descent over the stunning blue Pacific Ocean, a strange calm had settled over me. As other passengers eagerly pointed out whales breaching in the distance, I turned on my phone, bracing myself for the onslaught. It immediately began buzzing with notifications. 47 missed calls and over 60 text messages. I scrolled through them quickly, noting the progression from anger to concern to outright manipulation. The most recent text from my mother read, "The twins are with us. They're asking for you. How could you do this to them?" That one stung. I loved Emma and Ethan and would never want to hurt them. I quickly typed a response, "I'm glad they're safe with you. Please tell them I love them and will bring them presents from Hawaii." This isn't about them. Then I put my phone on silent and slipped it into my bag. Whatever crisis Madison was manufacturing would have to wait. I had arrived in paradise. The humid, flower-scented air hit me as I exited the airport. My rideshare driver, a cheerful local named Kai, placed a lei around my neck. "Aloha, welcome to Maui," he said. "First time here." "First time anywhere in a long time," I admitted. "Ah, you need this vacation," he nodded knowingly. "You've got that mainland stress look. Don't worry. The island will fix that." The drive to my beachfront hotel was like traveling through a postcard, lush mountains on one side, crystal blue ocean on the other. I'd splurged on accommodation way above my normal budget, booking a room with a private lanai overlooking the water. Checking in felt surreal. "Just you?" the receptionist asked. "Just me," I confirmed, and for once that didn't feel like a confession. My room was simple but beautiful, with wide windows framing the Pacific. I changed into a sundress-applied sunscreen and headed straight for the beach, determined to begin erasing the stress of the past 24 hours. The sand was warm between my toes as I walked along the shoreline. Families played in the waves, couples took selfies against the setting sun, and solo travelers like me strolled in quiet contemplation. No one here knew my story. No one cared that I was the disappointing sister who had finally snapped. Here I was, just another tourist seeking peace. I found a quiet spot to sit and watch the sunset. As the sky transformed from blue to vibrant oranges and pinks, I felt the emotional dam break. All the hurt, the anger, the years of diminishment poured out in silent tears that mixed with sea spray on my cheeks. A family with young children played nearby, their laughter carrying on the breeze. The mother caught my eye and smiled sympathetically, probably assuming I was overwhelmed by the beauty of the sunset rather than having an emotional breakdown on public beach. As darkness fell, I finally checked my phone again. Among the missed calls and angry texts was a surprising message from Derek Madison's husband. "I understand why you did this. Madison went too far. Enjoy Hawaii. We'll handle things here." This unexpected alliance gave me courage to listen to my voicemails. Most were variations of outrage from Madison and my parents, but the final one left just an hour ago caught me by surprise. "Caitlin, it's Mom. The wedding is still happening tomorrow. Madison has handled the childcare situation. Your father's sister is taking the twins. I think I understand why you left, even if I don't approve of how you did it. Call me when you can." It wasn't exactly an apology, but the lack of accusation felt like progress. I ordered room service rather than facing a restaurant alone, eating fresh fish and tropical fruit on my lanai while watching the moonlight on the waves. For the first time in recent memory, I fell asleep without checking work emails or scrolling social media. Just the sound of the ocean lulling me into the deepest sleep I'd had in years. Morning brought a renewed sense of purpose. I booked a snorkeling tour, finding myself on a catamaran with 15 other tourists, all eager to see Maui's famous sea turtles. Our guide, a sun-weathered woman named Leilani, gave safety instructions as we sailed to a protected cove. "Remember, the turtles are protected. No touching, just observing," she cautioned. In the water, weightless and surrounded by colorful fish, I spotted my first green sea turtle. It glided effortlessly through the water, unbothered by the excited humans floating above. I followed at a respectful distance, mesmerized by its ancient grace. They can live to be over 100 years old, Leilani told us afterward. They've learned that the secret to a long life is to move slowly and mind their own business. Sounds like good advice for humans, too, I replied, earning a knowing smile. Back at the hotel, I finally checked my messages again. Rachel had texted updates about the family situation. Your parents picked up the twins. Madison is furious but proceeding with the wedding. Your cousin Leah thinks you're a legend. I smiled at that last part, then noticed a text from my father. Hope you're safe. We've got the kids. They miss you, but they're excited you're seeing real volcanoes. I hadn't mentioned volcanoes, but I appreciated the opening he was providing. I'm safe. Thank them for understanding. I'll take lots of pictures of volcanoes for them. The next day, Madison's wedding day, I deliberately booked myself solid with activities. I hiked to a waterfall in the morning, feeling my body grow stronger with each step up the muddy trail. The payoff was worth every labored breath. A 60-foot cascade tumbling into a pristine pool surrounded by lush vegetation. Other hikers offered to take my picture, and for once I didn't hesitate to hand over my phone. Usually I avoided being photographed, years of Madison's subtle critiques having made me self-conscious. But here, flushed from exercise and backdropped by natural beauty, I smiled genuinely for the camera. That afternoon I joined a sunset cruise, sipping Mai Tais as we sailed along the coastline. A man about my age named Michael struck up a conversation, and I found myself sharing abbreviated versions of my story. So you're basically living out my fantasy, he laughed after I explained why I was in Hawaii. I've always wanted to dramatically escape a family function. It's not something I'd recommend, I admitted. But I also don't regret it. To not regretting, he toasted, clinking his glass against mine. As the boat returned to harbor, I realized it was just past midnight on the East Coast. Madison's wedding reception would be wrapping up. I sent a simple text, "Congratulations. I hope your day was perfect." She didn't respond, but my cousin Leah sent a reception photo showing Madison and Derek cutting their cake, both looking genuinely happy. The sight brought unexpected tears to my eyes. Not from regret, but from the complicated realization that I could simultaneously resent my sister's treatment of me and still want her to be happy. My final day in Hawaii was spent on a secluded beach, reading the novel I'd packed, and allowing myself the luxury of doing absolutely nothing productive. As the sun began to set on my last evening in paradise, I felt ready to face whatever awaited me back home. I'd changed in these 4 days. Not dramatically, not completely, but importantly. The Caitlin boarding the return flight was still the sister who'd been uninvited from a wedding, still the aunt who loved her niece and nephew, still the daughter trying to find her place in a complicated family. But she was also someone who had finally drawn a line, who had chosen self-respect over accommodation. Whether my family would recognize or accept this version of me remained to be seen. But as the plane lifted off from Maui and banked east toward reality, I knew I couldn't go back to being the person who always put herself last. My phone revealed the chaos I'd missed when I landed in Philadelphia. Rachel had sent a detailed account of family drama that had unfolded in my absence. Your sister told everyone you had a mental health episode and needed time away, she reported. Your cousin Leah didn't buy it and told me Madison was raging during the rehearsal dinner. According to family gossip, Madison had to explain my absence to confused guests who'd heard I couldn't make it, but now learned I was actually in Hawaii. The most surprising development was a text from Derek Hope Hawaii was worth the drama. For what it's worth, I told Madison she was out of line uninviting you and then expecting free childcare. I took a ride share from the airport, bracing myself for an empty apartment after the vibrancy of Hawaii. Opening my door, I was surprised to find a vase of fresh flowers on my coffee table with a card. The twins missed you. We all did. Call when you're ready, Madison. The gesture was so unexpected that I checked the signature twice. This wasn't Madison's style. She held grudges she didn't send peace offerings. I unpacked slowly, sorting laundry, and arranging the souvenirs I'd bought for Emma and Ethan. A turtle-stuffed animal for her, a volcano science kit for him. My tan reflected back at me from the bathroom mirror, along with something new in my eyes. A clarity that hadn't been there before. The next morning, I called Rachel first. I'm back. Still processing everything. How was it? She asked eagerly. Life-changing, I admitted. Not in a dramatic movie way, but in small moments of realizing I deserve better. You absolutely do, she agreed. So what now? Has Madison gone nuclear? Actually, she left flowers. I'm not sure what game she's playing. Maybe it's not a game this time, Rachel suggested. Sometimes a dramatic gesture is what it takes to break patterns. After coffee and catching up on work emails, I finally called my mother. Caitlin Elizabeth, she answered, her voice, a mixture of relief and residual anger. You had us worried sick. I'm fine, Mom. I just needed space. Space is a weekend at a spa, not abandoning your family responsibilities to fly across the country. I took a deep breath. I didn't have family responsibilities, Mom. Madison uninvited me from her wedding, then expected me to provide free childcare. That's not how family works. The silence that followed suggested she was actually considering my perspective. The twins missed you, she finally said. They keep asking when they'll get their volcano pictures. I bought them presents. I'd like to give them in person if that's okay. Madison wants to talk to you first, my mother replied. She's processing everything. 2 days after my return, Madison texted asking to meet for coffee. I suggested a neutral location, a cafe halfway between our homes. She arrived, looking immaculate as always, but with dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite conceal. You look tan, she said as she sat down. Hawaii will do that, I replied. We ordered our drinks in awkward silence. When they arrived, Madison finally spoke. What you did was incredibly irresponsible and selfish. I started to defend myself, but she held up a hand. Let me finish. It was selfish, and it nearly ruined my wedding weekend. She paused, twisting her new wedding band. But Derek thinks, and I'm starting to see, that what I did to you was worse. I blinked in surprise. You're acknowledging that uninviting me and then expecting childcare was wrong? I'm acknowledging that our relationship has been unbalanced for a long time, she said carefully. Derek pointed out that I take you for granted, that I expect you to be there when I need you, even though I haven't always been there for you. That's accurate, I managed. The wedding was beautiful, she continued, pulling out her phone to show me photos. But people kept asking where you were, and explaining became this whole thing that took attention away from me. I suppressed a smile at her characteristic self-focus, even during this attempted apology. I don't expect us to fix everything in one conversation, she added. But I would like you to see the twins. They miss their aunt. We arranged for me to visit the following weekend. As I watched Madison walk back to her car, I realized this was as close to an apology as she was capable of offering right now. Whether it represented genuine growth or just a temporary adjustment to maintain family peace remained to be seen. The reunion with Emma and Ethan was joyful. They were thrilled with their Hawaiian gifts and full of questions about volcanoes, sea turtles, and whether pineapples grow on trees. Did you bring us these because you were sad about missing the wedding? Emma asked with the directness only a 5-year-old can manage. I brought them because I love you, I answered honestly. And yes, I was sad about missing the wedding, but I needed to take care of myself. Like how Mommy says to put on your own oxygen mask first on airplanes, Ethan asked. Exactly like that, I smiled, wondering if Madison recognized the irony in teaching her children this principle. Over the following months, my relationship with Madison evolved cautiously. We established clearer boundaries. I agreed to regular visits with the twins, but declined last-minute babysitting requests. She made efforts to ask about my work and life, rather than dominating conversations with her own concerns. Our parents watched this new dynamic with uncertainty. My mother still occasionally slipped into old patterns defending Madison's behavior or minimizing my feelings, but my father surprised me by making more effort to connect one-on-one. I'm proud of the business you've built, he told me during a lunch, just the two of us. You've always been more resilient than we gave you credit for. Michael, the man I'd met on the Sunset Cruise and I stayed in touch through texts and occasional video calls. What had begun as a vacation connection evolved into a friendship with hints of something more. When he mentioned a business trip to Philadelphia, I found myself eagerly offering to show him around. More importantly, the Hawaii experience changed how I approached all relationships. I became more selective with my time, more vocal about my needs, and less apologetic about enforcing boundaries. Some friendships fell away under these new expectations, but the ones that remained grew stronger and more authentic. 6 months after the wedding, Madison invited me to Sunday dinner, a standing tradition I'd previously been excluded from. As I watched her interact with Derek and the twins in their immaculate home, I realized something fundamental had shifted. Madison wasn't suddenly a different person, and our relationship would never be the uncomplicated sisterhood I'd once yearned for. But for the first time, I was participating in family life on equal terms, rather than as an afterthought. The change wasn't in Madison, it was in me. By choosing myself that wedding weekend, I'd rewritten the family script in ways that continued to ripple outward. More wine, Madison offered, refilling my glass without waiting for an answer. Some habits die hard. I smiled, accepting both the wine and the imperfect reality of our relationship. Thanks. I'd like that. A year after my impromptu Hawaii escape, I returned to my apartment after a design conference to find a small envelope slipped under my door. Inside was a card with Madison's elegant handwriting. "1 year ago, I was a bridezilla who pushed you too far. Having you back in our lives these past months has meant more than I can say. Dinner Thursday, the twins miss their favorite aunt." The note crystallized how much had changed. Madison still wasn't perfect. She still occasionally slipped into her entitled habits. But the dramatic showdown over her wedding had somehow reset our relationship in ways I never thought possible. Our Thursday dinner became a monthly tradition. Sometimes at her house, sometimes at my apartment, and occasionally at restaurants, where the twins practiced their best table manners. During one such dinner, Madison surprised me by asking, "Do you think you'll ever get married?" Pre-Hawaii Caitlin would have deflected with a self-deprecating joke. New Caitlin answered honestly, "If I meet someone who adds to my happiness rather than diminishing it, maybe. But I'm not in a rush." Madison nodded thoughtfully. "I think that's wise. Marriage is harder than I expected, even with Derek. We've been in counseling since after the wedding fiasco." This admission of vulnerability from my perpetually perfect sister stunned me into momentary silence. "The counselor helped me see how I've treated you over the years," she continued, focusing intently on her wine glass. "I'm trying to do better. For you, but also for Emma and Ethan. I don't want them growing up thinking it's okay to treat people the way I treated you." "You're a good mother," I said, meaning it despite our complicated history. "The twins are lucky to have you." Our parents took longer to adjust to the new dynamic between us. My mother still occasionally slipped into old patterns. "Madison needs help with the school fundraiser. I told her you'd design the flyers." But now I felt comfortable setting limits. "I'd be happy to help, but I'll need 2 weeks' notice, and it will be at my professional rate." The first few times I enforced these boundaries, I braced for explosions that never came. Gradually, I realized that much of the dysfunction in our family relationships had been perpetuated by my willingness to accept scraps of approval at any personal cost. My father made the most surprising transformation, calling occasionally just to check in, and even attending one of my design exhibitions. "I never really understood what you do," he admitted as we stood before a series of brand identity concepts I'd created for a major client. "This is impressive, Caitlin." My friendship with Michael from Hawaii evolved slowly into something deeper. Our text conversations expanded to video calls, which led to his visit to Philadelphia and eventually regular trips between our cities. Unlike previous relationships where I'd made myself smaller to accommodate partners with Michael, I remained firmly rooted in my newfound confidence. "I like this version of you," Rachel observed over brunch one Sunday. "You're still kind and generous, but you're not a pushover anymore." Hawaii was my turning point, I reflected. Not because it was magical, but because it was the first time I chose myself over others' expectations. "Worth every penny of that last-minute airfare," she laughed. The most meaningful change came in my relationship with Emma and Ethan. As their Aunt Caitlin with boundaries, I was able to be more present and engaged during our time together. I taught Emma basic graphic design principles on my tablet, while Ethan and I conducted volcanic eruption experiments in the kitchen, much to Madison's controlled dismay over the mess. "Why don't you have kids?" Ethan asked during one sleepover at my apartment. "Some people are meant to be amazing aunts instead of moms," I explained. "I get to do cool projects with you, and Emma then send you home when we're tired." "Mom says you're teaching us independence," Emma reported. "She says she never learned that, and it's important." These glimpses of Madison's growth touched me deeply. We would never have the hallmark movie-sister relationship of shared secrets and finishing each other's sentences. Our bond would always be complex, shaped by decades of uneven treatment and complicated family dynamics. But we had found a way forward based on mutual respect rather than obligation or resentment. Last month, Madison surprised me by suggesting a sisters-only weekend trip. "No kids, no Derek, no parents," she proposed. "Just us reconnecting." We chose a small bed and breakfast in the Poconos rather than a tropical destination. Hawaii remained my personal symbol of independence, not something to be shared. During a hike through autumn foliage, Madison turned to me with unexpected vulnerability. "I was jealous of you growing up," she admitted. "Everyone expected perfection from me, but you gotta be creative and different." "I would have traded places in a heartbeat," I replied. "Mom and Dad celebrated your every achievement. I was the disappointment." "We both got trapped in roles that were too small," she said thoughtfully. "I'm glad we're finding our way out." That conversation didn't magically heal all our past wounds, but it opened a door to a more authentic relationship, one built on who we actually are rather than the roles we'd been assigned. As for Michael, what began as friendship has blossomed into love. He's planning to relocate to Philadelphia next month, and while we're taking things slowly, I can envision a future together built on mutual respect and genuine appreciation. The twins have already claimed him as Uncle Michael and insist he join our monthly family dinners. Watching him patiently help Ethan build elaborate Lego structures, I feel a contentment I once thought impossible. The journey from doormat to self-advocate wasn't linear or perfect. I still occasionally find myself slipping into people-pleasing habits, particularly with my parents. The difference now is that I recognize these patterns and can course-correct before losing myself entirely. Standing up for yourself doesn't always require dramatic gestures like flying to Hawaii during a family crisis. Sometimes it's as simple as saying no without explanation or asking for the recognition you deserve. The key is remembering that your needs matter as much as anyone else's, a lesson that took me 32 years to fully embrace. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family or struggled with setting boundaries with loved ones, know that change is possible. It might require a defining moment of choosing yourself, your own personal Hawaii. But the self-respect you gain is worth every uncomfortable conversation and broken expectation. What about you? Have you ever had to make a dramatic choice to break an unhealthy family pattern? Drop a comment below sharing your experience or how you've learned to stand up for yourself in difficult relationships. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories about navigating complicated family dynamics and finding your voice. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do for others is to first love yourself enough to say enough.